karanasan mo po, tingnan ba nakasalanan ng media?
Media educators are warning calls to defend press freedom.
This corruption in media won't be reduced to a minimum.
Good evening, I'm Mitzi Borromeo. June is Environment Month, so for tonight's News Cafe Mind Brew, we're going green and talking to some guys who have been making huge waves for environmental awareness and conservation. AG Saño is an artist and professional photographer who has gotten worldwide recognition for his dolphin murals scattered around the Philippines, which he has done through his organization, Dolphins Love Freedom. And Robert Suntay, fondly known as Bobbit, is a dive master and underwater videographer whose work has been featured widely here and abroad. He is a member of the WWF Philippines National Advisory Council and the network of underwater digital imagers. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for being here tonight.
Good evening, Mitzi.
So a lot we have to talk about to raise awareness on the environment. Let's start with you, AG. Since 2000, you've been volunteering in marine mammal surveys. No? You started with WWF?
That's right, WWF. We formed the team in late 99, and then the first trip was in the summer of 2000.
So this was the humpback whale survey?
The humpback whale survey.
That's how you started. Then you worked with a Disney company that was
about 6 years later.
Totally different. Totally different. It's just, you're a photographer.
Yeah, same job but different subject. So ibang wildlife yung kinukuhanan ko sa Disney.
Oh, iba't ibang
chipmunks, mga dogs.
Now after that, this is when you saw the Cove.
That's
and
right.
This is what really spurred you for your dolphin advocacy. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was one night in 2007. I was with Disney and we were watching CNN. Tapos while eating dinner, we saw a news clip about two Hollywood actresses, si Hayden Panettiere and si Isabel Lucas.
Yeah.
And the news clip showed that they were trying to stop some Japanese fishermen from killing a whole pod of pilot whales.
Yeah.
It was in Taiji, Japan.
Yeah.
So it opened my eyes. And the very next day, I found myself talking to my manager and asking him to release me na.
Yeah.
Kasi it was a very profound episode.
Very emotional.
Yeah, very. Kasi I've been working on dolphin and whale conservation for 6 years na. Tapos I would see
the slaughter of these.
Parang they could just easily slaughter a whole pod of pilot whales. It was something that really affected me.
Yeah.
Tapos at the same time, naalala ko my workmate, another photographer, parang she joked, sabi na, aren't you supposed to be doing that thing? Kasi they knew that I've been doing conservation work before I worked for Disney.
So it was a natural path for you.
That's right. So I went back after a month and I went back straight to whale conservation pagbalik sa Pilipinas.
Diyan talaga ang puso mo,
yes. Tapos after 3 years, that was when I saw the movie. And it so happened that this exact same news clip on CNN 3 years earlier was actually part of that documentary.
Ah.
Wow. Yes.
So you wanted to use art as a way to really just raise awareness on this issue.
Right.
That's why you did dolphin murals.
Initially, I just wanted to pay tribute to those beings. And as a painter, yun yung naisip ko na expression. So immediately after seeing the movie, that was the morning after I saw the movie, nagpaint kagad ako ng isang wall. Tapos nagpaint ako ng dolphin and then doon na nagsimula.
From there, dami-dami na around the Philippines. But we'll talk more about that later. Now, Bobbit, you came from the academe, actually.
Yep.
You were a principal, you were a teacher, and then you got into underwater videography. How did that happen?
I guess in a way it was kind of like AG also. It was like a natural progression. The coming together of the great passions in my life. I've been in education for a long time. And then I've been diving now for almost 20 years. So I guess it was almost inevitable that the two would come together. My desire to teach and share about the beauty of the underwater world to people who don't always have the chance to appreciate it firsthand the way we do. And so now we know that environmental awareness and conservation is so much on the forefront. So again, it was just one more important block coming together that I started talking about not only the beauty of our marine environment, but the fragility and importance of it, and how each of us can play a role in really helping protect our fantastic underwater world.
That's
The
right.
final piece was 4 years ago when I fell in love with underwater videography. That helped me just bring the whole project, as it were, together.
You didn't even have formal training in videography. This is something, a passion.
Yeah,
you
no,
pursued,
no formal training. It was kind of funny. One weekend I was in Anila with a bunch of friends, and my friend Gabby Besa lent me his point and shoot with an acrylic housing. And he said, "Here, try it." So I went to one of my favorite dive sites and started shooting, and that was it. Love at
Well,
first
exactly,
sight, and
love
I
at
never stopped shooting from that day.
So it's funny
onwards.
how, what we study doesn't necessarily bring us to the careers that we choose. Because you took up psychology, that was your undergrad.
Yes,
Ikaw
yes.
naman, AG, art, you were in
Landscape architecture.
landscape architecture. So imagine. So when you were growing up, were you always exposed to nature? Do you think you had a passion for this even at a young age?
I've been exposed to nature for as long as I can remember. Kasi yung parents ko, they loved bringing us to different places every weekend. Even nung grade school pa, high school. Pag Saturday, Sunday, drop everything. Pasyal kami, Los Baños, kung saan, Batangas, Tagaytay, wherever. Tapos, I found myself being passionate about the environment. Later na. Yung, I think, towards the end of my college years na. And one factor there is, syempre yung brother ko, who has been an environmentalist for the longest time.
It's Climate Commissioner Saño.
And then, sa landscape architecture kasi, meron kaming parang Bible, yung design with nature. So by default, magiging environmentalist ka.
Yes.
Because you would really have to design based on nature. Hindi yung ikakat mo lahat ng puno. Like, let's say they give you one piece of land to design. Kakalboy mo, tapos mag-introduce ka ng design mo. That's not how it works. No? They teach us how to work around nature.
Yeah.
That's why it's sad to see yung mga development ngayon na puputulin yung puno. Tapos, or let's say may isang puno na sabi nila tatamaan daw ng drainage, so puputulin na lang. I mean, you spend 5 years in college to study civil engineering. Kasi hindi mo kayang umiwas ng isang puno na 3 meters, 2 meters lang yung
Which took how many
diferensya.
years? That's
Hindi ko
right.
maintindihan.
So ito talagang kailangan natin talagang pag-aralan dito sa Pilipinas,
Yes.
ano? Yeah. For you, Bobbit, you also did your master's in what you did, human resource development, international affairs, education in the US, Georgetown, Harvard. Then you found yourself in education. Do you miss it, or do you feel like that also prepared you for what you're doing now?
The way I look at it is my classroom has changed. My students have changed somewhat, but it's still really education that I'm involved in. When you have the privilege to share with people the experiences that you have, interacting with these rare and delicate and important marine species, both the flora and fauna, and telling them about how important it is to take care of them. To me, that's still education. I may not be surrounded by the four walls of the classroom, but when I go out to the sea, to our beautiful marine landscapes here, I really have no complaints. I think I have one of the best classrooms and offices in the world.
Yeah, well, speaking of classrooms, you began diving many years ago when dynamite and other illegal fishing practices were still very much rampant. Can you tell us about some of these experiences, diving back in the day?
I guess, again, kind of like AG, that's how I inadvertently got into marine conservation. My parents and my titos and titas were really into nature also, so we would go to the beach with all our cousins when I was very young. This was in the mid to late 1960s. We used to go to this far-flung place called Bamboo Beach, which is now known as the famous Kawayan Cove, but we were going there in 68, 69 when hardly anyone could even get there. And then the involvement, I'll never forget. I was just newly certified, so this must have been in 94. I was diving in a beautiful dive spot in Anilao called Pulang Buli with one of my dear friends, the late director Marilu Diaz-Abaya. And it was a Saturday morning, 10 a.m., and we were seeing the reef in its full glory. And as we went around the reef, we saw two people close to the reef, and one of them was pumping cyanide onto it. That's how they get aquarium fish.
Yeah.
They stun them with the cyanide, then scoop them up with the
they're
nets, and then sell them off. And they actually die soon after that because they've ingested so much cyanide. But what happened was, as we approached them to tell them to stop, Marilu went forward and told the guy pumping the cyanide to stop doing it. His buddy then pulled out a spear gun and
Oh my
pointed it
gosh.
at her. So we were all in shock.
Yeah.
Marilu, only after a moment's hesitation, batted away the spear gun and would not stop telling the
Wow.
person to cease and desist until they literally both left the water.
Brave
So, yeah, that's in a way
That was
that's
common
that was
back
my
in the day,
first
yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
and that I guess got me into appreciating protecting the environment.
Yeah. Well, we still have a lot to talk about, but let's go back on that issue. But let me ask AJ, when it comes to painting murals, what is the process? Because hindi lang ikaw to, no? Talagang
Yeah.
you involve the community. Paano ba yung, how do you get the project started?
I have a simple formula. If you have a wall, you have paint and a message, that's equal to an advocacy. No? So pagka may tumatawag sa akin, kasi mostly mga strangers lang yung nag-invite sa akin to paint murals na in their places. They look for a wall, tapos they buy paint. Kasi ako, I don't have funding. Totally voluntary lahat to. So I go there, I give a talk about why I'm doing it. No, tapos what I do is I sketch the whole thing. I draw the whole thing using black paint. Para siyang giant coloring book. So that way, anyone can join. No? So yung fast 4 years, well, yung first mural na sinasabi ko, there were about 10 of us. After 4 years, I think more than 50,000 people na yung nakipinta sa amin. Most of those people are first-time painters. Kasi yun talaga yung intention to involve the community. Kasi that way, they would have an ownership of the wall and the message.
Yeah.
Instant advocate sila pagka nakisama sila sa'yo. So I encountered yung people on the street, mga street kids, pedicab drivers, policemen,
Saya.
people from all walks of life. No?
Even yung mga MMDA, di ba? Kasi they're always blocking
Even
the
them,
road. So sila rin nakikipaint,
Totoo.
ano? Nakikitulong.
Rebels in the mountains, mga anak ng rebels, soldiers. Nakakatuwa at one time, there were soldiers and children of rebels painting together on one wall. Something na parang sa panaginip lang.
Galing.
Tapos may isang beses, kasi tayo hindi natin alam yung mga tribes sa south na. May mga Maranao, may mga Tausug. These people don't really belong to one tribe. No?
Yeah.
Pero at one point, I was able to bring Tausug artist and Marano artist to paint in one wall together.
Galing. Now we have more stories to share, but it's just time for a quick break. Keep it here on the Solar News Channel. Welcome back to News Cafe. We've got AG Saño and Bobbit Suntay at the table as we go green for the Environment Month this month of June. So we were just looking at pictures of your murals, AG. Ito yung sa Katipunan, ano?
Yes.
So this was a project done, what was it, last year ba?
About, I think 2 years ago na yun.
Yeah.
2 years na.
Now this advocacy, apart from raising awareness on the environment, you say it's also an advocacy for art, but
For
you're
art.
bringing to the masses.
Yes, I remember one time I was watching an interview of one of my idols na. Isa sa mga sobrang tinitingala akong Filipino artists. The interviewer asked her kung paano madadala yung art sa masses or sa mahihirap. And I was expecting yung i-explain niya kung paano. But then the way she answered was parang no, art is not for the masses talaga kasi they can't afford it. Yun yung sinabi niya. So
Elitist
parang biglang na-shock ako doon. I remember I was with my mother. na-shock din siya. So, parang, kung meron akong list ng pound for pound artist na paborito ka, top 10, biglang natanggal siya sa top 10.
Knock-out na siya sa
Knock-out
list
siya.
mo.
Kasi hindi ko maintindihan kung bakit ganun. Kasi I was brought up, I mean, my mentor was Fernando Sena. Fernando Sena decided to teach rather than to do, hundreds of exhibits sa lifetime
Father
niya.
of Philippine art workshops.
Yes, tinuruan na yung mga street kids, mga batang tondo. Kaya yun ang nakalakihan ko sa art. So hindi ko na matanggap yung sinabi ng idolo ko na hindi siya pang masa. So kasabay nung environmental advocacy is yung paraan din na dalhin sa tao yung art. That's why ginagawa ko siya na accessible. And as much as possible, kahit sino pwede mag-paint with me. Kung 1,000, sige, sabay-sabay pwede. Hindi yung ako lang. Kasi kaya ko naman talaga tumapos ng isang wall ng ako lang or yung grupo ko lang. Pero hindi yun sabi ko, hindi yun intention. My intention is to bring it to the people, to get them involved. Kaya nga, I'm proud to say na I think about 98% of the people who joined me in my cause are first-time painters. And lagi ko sinasabi na pag first time mong ginawa ang isang bagay, chances are hindi mo siya makakalimutan habang buhay.
Kaya ito rin, it fosters this bayanihan spirit. This is how you get people to really feel a sense of ownership.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, this is very important because we have so many environmental challenges in the Philippines, no? Bobbit, you were just mentioning some of them. Earlier, we were talking about overfishing, dynamite fishing. What are some of the really big problems that have really kind of, made you angry here in the Philippines?
Well, as you said, the problems are many, but I guess sad to say the biggest problem is really us, human beings, and our careless disregard for the environment. I just got back from a project where I was shooting turtles in Balikasag in Bohol, and that's one of the things Bohol is famous for.
Yeah.
And the turtles there are just simply beautiful. They're adorable. But we've heard in the news lately, right, about the Chinese poachers.
Yes, 500 sea turtles.
500, and how many hundreds of them were dead by the time the authorities...
Here are some of your beautiful turtle shots we see right there.
Yeah, I mean,
imagine seeing, I can't believe what they did to them. They put, what is it, in their eye sockets?
yeah, allegedly they blinded the turtles and then ran ropes through their eye sockets. I mean, you can see, I mean, look at that beautiful
Gentle,
animal.
old creature. Yeah.
And it's mind-boggling just the abuse that's done to them. So, that's one thing, no? And of course, we're the ones responsible. It's easy and convenient to point the finger at the Chinese poachers. But again, honestly speaking, this would not have happened if they did not have Filipinos collaborating with them as well, no?
Yeah.
And it's hard for us to say, why or how or why these Filipinos collaborated. We don't know what their motives were. It could be as simple as harsh economic realities.
Right.
They need to put food on their families' tables, and maybe they had no other options. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
And even just simple stuff like disposing waste properly. Turtles love to eat many things. They love to eat jellyfish in particular. And if you see a transparent plastic bag floating mid-water, it's hard for the
Looks like
turtle to
food.
distinguish between the jellyfish and that plastic bag.
Yeah.
And obviously, if a turtle eats the plastic bag, it will either get very sick or die from ingesting that. So even just us being more careful about how we dispose of waste will go a long way towards protecting the environment.
What do you think the government is doing or not doing? Because we have so many laws. I think we have some of the most number of environmental laws here, but they're not being properly enforced.
Yeah.
For you, for example, AG, when you were working with WWF, you were saying when you were taking the whale sounds, may mga explosions na record rin. Sa inyo ba, I mean, did you feel na may government presence or protection or enforcement?
The problem kasi sa Pilipinas, sobrang haba ng coastline. We have a lot of islands na sobrang remote, where monitoring is hardly present, no? Kaya it's up to the community talaga eh. If you empower the community through NGO programs, mas malakas yung chance na ma-enforce yun. Kasi I've seen how the Bantay Dagat people work. I mean, they would die for the environment. And these guys are fisher folks, diba? They belong to the lower
So this is the
levels.
group in Batangas, ano?
Batangas,
They really
no.
brought back
And
the
I met Bantay Dagat folks from Mindoro, from different provinces.
Yeah.
Now they're working really hard, and they're not government people, di ba?
Yeah.
Kasi I think the biggest issue here is yung advocacy. I mean, in fairness to a lot of government officials, mga LGUs, they work really hard, but their positions should be parang positions of advocacy.
Right.
Even yung mga agencies. Yan, yung mga Bantay Dagat, they're volunteer fisher folks, but they go all out in protecting the
You
environment.
really have to be passionate.
They're not
in
paid
this
for
field.
that.
That's
diba?
right.
They're advocates. So if the government people can be employees and advocates at the same time, I think mas magkakaroon ng
Yeah.
puso to protect the environment.
Yeah. Well, for you, what have been some of the biggest challenges for what you do, whether it's been working with LGUs or other communities? For you, Bobbit, for example, it must be hard pushing this cause and getting things done. What have been some of the major drawbacks or challenges?
Well, first of all, I agree with AG 100%. No, that the thrust to protect our environment must start from the grassroots, and it
Yeah.
must be driven by those who have most at stake. The locals who live along the coastlines, for example. It's so easy for us kasi to say, preserve the environment,
Yeah.
ban this, ban that. But, there are millions of people whose lives depend on the fish,
That's
the
right.
coral, the
Coastal
industries that go
resources,
along,
yeah.
coastal resources. So we have to devise a way where there's an equitable sharing, as it were, where everyone benefits, but in a way that's sustainable, that we don't destroy the goose that lays the golden
Yeah.
eggs for our country.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the Bantay Dagat is a great example of a success story. But pushing that further, if we can educate the locals even more and bring it down, as I said, to the grassroots. I'm talking about teacher training and student training in the public schools, where the public schools are located right along the coast.
Yeah.
Because these are the people who will really take care of the seashore, the underwater world far into the future, long after we are gone.
That's right.
And they have the most at stake. So if we can focus on working with them, get government to direct more funds towards marine education for the public schools in the coastal areas, I think that will be a huge impact, a really good first step.
And this is what many groups are doing, like WWF. You are on the National Advisory Council,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So many NGOs are out there and they seem to be doing the same call to action, a lot of work being done, and some people say it's the same old, call or tagline. Now, ever since this Napoles scam, NGOs have gotten a bad name. What do you think of this? I mean, now sometimes it's harder for them to fundraise because people are very wary now of this whole NGO setup. AG, what do you think about this?
Yes, there's
Does it make it harder?
a big effect, no? Especially yung right after pumutok yung balita tungkol sa scam. Dalawang bagay yan yung perception ng community towards NGOs, and at the same time, like you said, yung pagkuha ng funding. Although I think once na ma-establish ng mga NGOs yung kanilang involvement sa communities and yung trust naman ng communities is there, madali lang naman nilang ibabalik din yung kumbaga back to normal yung kanilang mga ginagawa. No? But it does have an effect sa trust nga ng tao.
Yeah. Bobbit?
I've worked with a bunch of NGOs,
Yeah.
and even in our own NGO, our cancer support group, it has been a little harder. People do ask, how are you using the funds? But two things, no? One, if they kind of know the people involved in the actual projects, then the donors are put a little bit more at ease that what they're contributing is going to the right place. The other thing is there's PCNC, which accredits organizations. You voluntarily ask them to come in to study your operations, and after a period of time, they say, yep, you're an NGO that's doing good work. We give you the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. And again, that sets donors a bit more at ease as to the funds that they're giving
Right.
for what they hope will do to make a difference.
So you just have to make sure it's a genuine
Exactly.
NGO.
Yeah.
And there are ways, no?
Do your homework. Do
yeah,
your
the
homework.
checklist,
Yes.
right. Now, AG, one of the the rewarding moments for you was when the trainer of, who was it? Si Rick O'Barry, the
yeah.
trainer of Flipper,
Flipper.
was here and he actually signed up to your advocacy.
That's right.
Ikwento naman ano
I was
nangyari.
really surprised kasi I remember we were featured in one of the dailies in UK. Tapos so I posted the link online. Tapos one of the people who replied or commented sa thread sa Facebook was Rick O'Barry. And sabi niya, I'm on my way to the Philippines with paintbrush in hand. So nasa Taiji siya na nagmo-monitor sila ng slaughters. But he went to the Philippines for a side trip. He joined us sa pagpipinta. And it so happened that he used to be an artist talaga. He painted when he was younger. Sobrang ano siya, into it. And sabi nga niya parang na-revive yung ano niya, yung love niya for painting. And he even emailed me a couple of his yung photos ng mga old paintings siya ng mga dolphins.
Yeah.
And for me, of course, it's a validation nung ginagawa namin.
Right.
Imagine your hero.
Yeah.
Bumaba.
And it's with you.
Yeah, went down
supporting
to
you.
to your level. Tapos nandun siya all-out support.
Yeah, galing. Well, sorry guys, I'll stop you for a minute because it's time for another short break. When we return, AG and Bobbit will tell us all about the perks of the job. You're watching News Cafe, and I'm talking to AG Saño and Bobbit Suntay about their love affairs with the environment. Okay, guys, you've been to some of the most beautiful places on the planet. Let's start with you, Bobbit. What are some of the best places you've been to? Tell us about some of these.
Been to a bunch of really nice places. Here in the Philippines, my heart belongs to Anilao, the center of marine biodiversity. So I think Anilao is definitely one of the best spots in the world. We have, of course, the Tubataha Reefs, which is a World Heritage Site. Bohol, Dumaguete, Camiguin, Guimaras, these are all beautiful places.
We have some of the best diving sites.
Some of the best. More fish and coral species in these areas than in other parts of the world.
You mentioned the center of the center, so this is the Verde Island Passage in Anilao, not far from Manila.
It's the body of water that runs basically from Mindoro around the Puerto Galera, Apo Reef area all the way down through Anilao. I mean, 2.5 hours easy drive from where we're speaking right now, and you have a world-class dive spot. So who can complain about that?
And wonderful how you saw back in the day, you were just saying all the illegal fishing methods, and now it's changed so much. It's really flourished. The coral reefs are really rich and back, and you even see whale sharks there.
Yes. I mean, like AG was saying, the Bantay Dagat have made a huge difference, and I'm sure education efforts have also gained traction. In the 20 years that I've been diving, I mean, the first 10 years, you could hardly go without a single dive hearing dynamite explosions. And now in this second decade that I've been diving, I've never once heard a dynamite explosion, not once seen a cyanide fisherman. So things have definitely improved.
Yeah, this is a good example of how government is properly enforcing and working with private the private sector also, in communities. For you, AG, sa'yo naman, ano kaya mga best places for you?
I remember a friend of mine asked me, what are the top 5 best of the best beaches you've been to. And funny kasi hindi kasama yung Boracay.
Ang dumi na you know.
Yeah, kahit wag pag-usapan yung ecosystem, just the sand. Sabi, saan yung pinaka-finest sand na nakita mo? Hindi kasama yung Boracay sa top 5. Ibig sabihin, there are a lot more other beautiful places that I've been to. Sadly, hindi siya basta mapupuntahan ng turista. Kasi lahat sila nasa south na. Tawi-Tawi, Basilan, and Sulu.
Ito nga, you have access to some of these really beautiful places that not any ordinary tourist can go to because of research or conservation activities. So maybe it's better that way kasi nga kung puntahan ng mga tao, grabe ang destruction, degradation.
It's probably the parang security blanket. I mean, yun yung pinaka-protection ng mga places na to. Like for example, for me, the last frontier is the Babuyan Islands. Babuyan Islands, even without the humpback whales, last frontier siya yung pinakamaganda. You'd see pristine forest, yung magagandang corals. I brought Karina Escudero, one of the most famous underwater
videographers.
And she's been a dive instructor since way back. I brought her to one of the parang coral areas doon. Umahon siya after 5 seconds. Sabi na, man, this is the best sight I've seen. Sabi ko, in the Philippines?
Sure.
No, anywhere else.
Wow.
Sabi ko, no, you're kidding me. The next day, I brought her to another spot. After a minute, lumabas siya. Sabi na, this is way better than yesterday. So imagine that for Karina Escudero to say that. Sabi na anywhere else na. So sabi ko, this is the last frontier. The good thing about the Babuyan Islands is that it's protected by the rough waters of the Babuyan Channel. So kahit nang gustuhin natin magdala ng turista doon, may mga months within the year na hindi talaga makakatawid dahil sobrang treacherous yung and people die. I mean, I know a lot of people who have died there. Mga friends ko na namatay sa pagtawid sa channel. So in a way, Mother Nature is balancing the things for the Babuyan Islands at least.
Well, speaking of Mother Nature, sometimes, you know, these things happening now due to climate change, they're saying that a lot of our environmental destruction is making these things worse, like what happened with Typhoon Yolanda. Now, you were in Tacloban when Typhoon Yolanda struck. You were on your way to Camotes Island. And you ended up helping with recovery efforts of the dead bodies. Tell us about that.
Yes, I was on my way to Camotes for a photo assignment for Rare International. It's an NGO focused on protecting, on working with communities for marine protected areas. So I had to go through Tacloban, parang stopover. But then, naabutan na nung bagyo, so I decided na mag-stay muna doon. And I went there also to visit my friend. Kasi I have friends there and relatives kasi that's where my father comes from. So happened na tumapat sa schedule ko doon yung pagdating ng Yolanda. And after it hit Tacloban, I found myself parang treading sa baha, sa surge. And I was trying to look for a way to communicate to my family. Kasi wala na, totally cut na lahat ng communication lines. Even yung mga, kuryente, wala na lahat. So I was trying to look for a way na. May mga friends ako sa media, so naisip ko, maybe I can find them and try to relay a message home. And habang naglalakad kami towards, kasi naisip ko puntang Kapitolyo, malamang nandun yung ibang friends sa media. Ang dami na nakakalat na mga dead bodies and napansin ko yung unang napansin ko yung fire department, just a few of them na nakapag-report kasi mukhang na rin.
Sila rin na-affect.
Tamaan din sila. Sobrang daming patay, konti lang nagbubuhat. So naisip ko, siguro na lang, I'd lend a hand. That was the first day. Second day, parang naisip ko ganun pa rin eh. So nagtuloy-tuloy na rin. Mga 3 days akong tumulong na lang dun sa nag-volunteer na lang ako sa mga efforts ng LGU to help out.
And it was during this time to your friend Ajit Sustento, who was a musician and tattoo artist, you found out he actually didn't make it.
I found out he died on the second day. So habang kasi naka-convoy kami ng mga truck na papunta sa main road, doon kami nagpi-pick up ng mga dead bodies. And some of our other friends saw me on the truck. So tinawag nila, binalita nila sa akin na namatay nga yung friend ko na pinuntahan ko doon. The whole family. Tapos yung parents niya, rin.
That was really tough.
nalunod din sa...
Heartbreaking, no? But this
It
was
was.
also a time when your brother, Saño, Climate Commissioner Saño, was at Poland.
That's
the climate
right.
change
I didn't
talks.
know about that na he delivered the opening speech.
Yeah.
Kasi wala kaming way na malaman doon.
Walang access.
Walang
oh,
access.
Walang kuryente nga.
Walang kuryente. Although meron na set up yung DSWD na parang internet station. Pero hindi naman kami basta maka-access dahil haba ng pila at saka limited din yung time. So nalaman ko lang yan when I arrived in Villanueva. Na may news crew tas na parang narinig ako nang ipagkwentuhan sa isa pang survivor. Tapos in-interview din ako. Tapos he found, when the reporter found out na, so you're the brother of the commission.
Because he mentioned you.
Yeah, you're the
he
one
mentioned you in
he was
his
talking
speech.
about. Sabi ko, hindi ko po narinig yung speech. So pina-view niya sa akin sa phone niya yung speech.
Yeah, and as Yeb said, the lesson here is to listen to the scientists.
That's
no?
right.
The experts. We could
That's
have
the sad thing
prevented
about politics.
Yeah.
They parang sineset aside lang yung sinasabi ng mga scientists. These guys live with empirical data. Yung mga scientists ang nagka-come up with the research,
Right.
with facts.
Yeah.
So, ito mga bagay na pinapakita nila, dapat pakinggan.
Yeah.
Dapat pakinggan.
Oo. Now, despite the heartbreak and the difficulties, of course, there's a lot of good coming out of these jobs. Now, they say when you work in the environment, it's not very rewarding financially, but many other rewards. For you, what would you say are the best parts of working doing what you do for you, Bobbit? What would it be?
I guess it would be, access to places that otherwise would not be very accessible to me, or as AJ was saying, the regular tourist,
Right.
the opportunity to go and capture these beautiful underwater scenes.
Yeah.
I think also just, knowing that in your own small way, you're doing something to advance the cause of environmental protection. That's one of the things that for me is a real perk behind what I do. And really just any chance to be out there,
Right.
underwater.
Being so close to wildlife. Sometimes it's better being next to them than humans.
It's different. It's
an
such
amazing experience, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
When you see them in the wild, iba talaga. Where they
if
belong.
whether you believe in God or not, or the universe or the force, whatever you want to call it,
Feel the
just
force.
being down there, you really feel one with it. There's
Yeah.
no way words can't really express until you yourself are there face to face,
Right.
fin to fin.
Right.
as it were.
And so please explain to us, you've worked so closely with wildlife, why it is so important to keep them there, and why things like, dolphin shows, whale shows, or killer orca shows are really controversial, AG.
Kasi, we have ecosystems na. Ecosystems that work. They work because they have elements within them na may relationship with one another. Pagka nagtanggal ka, if you remove even just one element from that ecosystem, you decrease by certain levels, whether maliit na degree or malaking degree, yung effectivity niya.
Right.
So, if you take away, let's say, yung favorite kasi ng mga dolphin shows, yung mga young female dolphins. Na. If you take away the young females from the pod, effectively, you decrease the capacity of that pod to reproduce.
Yeah.
No? So, you put them in a cage or in a pen or in a facility and you take care of them. I believe that they're really taken care of really well. No?
Yeah.
At least for some facilities. But then that's not the point. The point is you have to make the ecosystems work. Diba?
Yeah.
The reason why we don't want people using poison or cyanide and dynamite sa coral reef. Kasi every time you use a dynamite, may masisira, may mababawasan ka ng elements because you destroy some of the corals that are immediately hit by the dynamite or the impact.
Yeah.
Ganun din, if you take away one narrow tree from a forest, you don't take away one life. There are hundreds of thousands of organisms dependent on that narrow tree.
Yeah.
If you take away, let's say, a migratory species like a whale shark from its ecosystem, effectively you decrease the capacity of that ecosystem to work.
Yeah.
Now, ang isang whale shark, it travels far distances, probably hundreds or thousands of kilometers. If you take away that whale shark from that expanse, parang binabawasan yung capacity nung expanse. Like I said, yung narratory, hindi lang siya isang buhay. Hundreds of thousands of organisms depend on that whale shark sa path na dinadaanan. If you retain that whale shark in one area lang, hindi mo siya pinapaalis dyan. Paano yung mga dependent na organisms doon sa dinadaanan na path na probably thousands of kilometers?
Yeah. Well, we'll talk more about that. We'll just take another short break. News Cafe will be right back. So.
Media indicators and warnings call to defend press freedom.
This corruption in media won't be reduced. Media won't be reduced to media won't be reduced
You're watching News Cafe, and I'm with AG Saño and Bobbit Suntay talking about their green crusades. Now, we were just talking about why it's important to keep wildlife in the wild and not captive. Now, a lot of people are familiar with these dolphin shows and, going to swim with them. Why is this so dangerous, actually, Bobbit? I mean, you've actually interacted with some of these.
Yes,
you've
yes,
gone swimming
actually.
with some of the
Yeah,
dolphins.
I mean, full disclosure here. Really, my love affair with the sea started in the aquariums. I remember I must have been about 6, 7 years old when my parents brought me to SeaWorld, which is now the subject of the wonderful and amazing film Blackfish that shows the perils of handling killer whales or orcas in a confined
Very
space.
scary.
And then later on in life, I went to Ocean Adventure and I interacted with the dolphins there. I'm very, very aware of the disadvantages of artificial environments like that and taking the creatures out of the wild and the impact on them. I'm just wondering, maybe it's kind of a quixotic dream that maybe there's a way to handle these creatures, to put them in a proper holding environment that will minimize the detrimental effects on these creatures, whether they be whales or dolphins or fish in a fish tank, so that the general public, people like me, at a very young age, can be exposed to them and see that it's so important for us to eventually get out there and do our thing to protect them and to protect the environment. I've heard some scientists say that under certain conditions, say aquariums with tanks of say 500,000 gallons, that the fish that are in those tanks actually reproduce more within those tanks than they have in the wild. And for some of these scientists, that's a sign that the fish are happy, that the environment is good. But again, it's almost just common sense to think that anytime you take a living creature out of its natural environment, it's bound to have negative effects. No? So that's the dilemma for me.
Yeah. AG?
I remember the movie, and I'm sure maraming tao nakakalala ng Finding Nemo.
Yes.
Remember how the father of Nemo was so scared pag pumupunta sa edge nung drop, di ba? That's because yung mga species na yon, they just live in a certain area, parang probably a few square meters sa buong buhay nila. So if you put them in an aquarium na mare-replicate or even better, siguro okay lang. Kasi hindi magiging masama sa buhay nila yon. And kung ma-assure na hindi rin makakasama doon sa ecosystem na pinagkuhan nila, okay lang siguro yon. And if it can educate people na makakita, why not? But if you put a migratory species in an enclosure, kahit gaano kalaki yan, hindi magmamatch Hindi magmamatch.
Well, controversial, I guess one of the controversial places now is Oslob, where the whale sharks have been fed by the fishermen because it's bringing them more earnings, more than rather, and they're not hunting them. So many environmentalists are against this. But what do you think of this? Because this is not their normal migratory pattern anymore.
For me, these creatures have been living for millions of years under parang a life process. Diba? They were designed by let's say, if you're a believer, maybe God designed the process, or if not, the universe created the process. Millions and millions of years na yan. Ang sharks, billions pa. Dolphins have been around for 12 million years na, not counting the evolution. So may process na nangyari na even wala pang tao. Kasi yung tao, 200,000 years pa lang ang existence
So we're
natin.
changing it.
Ibig sabihin, for us to say na this is better for them, I
Yeah.
don't think that's right.
Yeah.
Because they've been living for millions and millions of years without us around.
Yeah.
Na may process na silang pinagdadaanan. Pag iniba natin yun, baka yun yung mali.
It's really for
Diba?
human benefit. Yeah,
Exactly,
what's
for
being
human
done.
benefit. Ngayon, kung
Yeah.
if it could help the environment na mag-put up ng yun ecotourism programs, okay yun. Kasi there are areas na sobrang hirap ng community. So what they do is they make use of the elements of the environment. Umaabot sa point na nag-illegal logging na, yun, nagda-dynamite na. Kasi yun yung fastest way for them to earn. Kung ganon, may mga areas kasi na pag pumasok yung ecotourism, nababantayan lalo at nagkakaroon ng chance na kumita yung tao in a better way, in a sound way, in a legal way. So, hindi sila magre-resort sa pag-dynamite, pag-cyanide, pagsira ng gubat.
Right.
So may balance, pwedeng magkaroon ng balance. Pero for me, once iniba mo yung process na nag-exist na for millions and millions of years, magkakaproblema yan. It's bound to be a problem. So baka pwede naman maghanap sa iba. Like yung Oslob, natutuwa ako na nagkaroon sila ng income. I mean, from zero tourists
Yeah. It's bringing
to
in a lot of tourists
hundreds of
to the
thousands,
area.
no? Probably millions. But then, ang tanong is, hanggang saan ba yung maximum or ceiling ng programa na gagawin? Kasi kawawa din. Kawawa yung butanding. Once magka-problema yung butanding, kasi nga, hindi na siya lumalayo. Diba? They try to keep the butanding siya para yung tourist dumating na dumating.
That's right.
Paano na yung nabanggit ko kanina na yung hundreds of thousands of other organisms na dependent sa kanya? Even pag namatay na siya, pag lumubog siya sa dagat, kung saan man siya doon sa path na dinadaanan na doon sa path na millions of years na nag-exist. Even yung mga uod na kakain sa carcass niya.
Right.
Circle of life.
Right.
Scavengers. Sayang.
Yeah.
Kaya yung mga dolphins na nilalagay sa show, pagka namatay sila, they would work for their whole lives hanggang mamatay sila.
Yeah.
Kahit ilibing nila sa magandang libingan nila, iba nga may cross pa, nakakatuwa eh. Hindi yun ang point eh. Ang point is they belong to the sea. Even yung carcass nila, pag nabulok yon, ang kakainan yung mga types ng species na ginagawa na yun for millions of millions
Now, again, this is all part of the human activities. Now, human consumption is really taking a toll on the environment. According to a WWF Living Planet report, they say that we consume as if we have another planet.
That's
that if we continue with business as usual, we will need two planets
more
by
planets.
2030. What are your tips for what people should do, or maybe what you yourselves are doing to help solve this problem, Bobbit?
I think even very, very simple changes in our lifestyle where we consume less electricity, for example, because the carbon footprint of humanity is really one of the biggest negative impacts on our planet. No? And byproduct of that is because of all the pollution, we're having greater ocean acidification, which affects the coral and therefore affects the fish and all of that. Temperature levels are rising, and we know that coral exists within a very narrow band of temperature. I was diving just 2 days ago in Bohol, and I was checking the temperature on my computer. It was 86 Fahrenheit. That's the warmest I've ever felt it ever diving in 20 years. It's getting hotter and hotter. Fortunately, our coral are very robust. They tend to recover more quickly than coral in other parts of the world, which is probably why we have such diversification here. But there is a limit at which point neither they nor we are going to be able to recover. No? And it's the question of where is that limit, who sets the parameters, and how can we enforce it so that everything remains sustainable for the longer term, for the generations to come.
AG, I like what you're doing though, with really bringing it to the masses, grassroots level, and in fact, it's also encouraging peace. No, you're doing something in Mindanao as well.
Yeah. Well, sa environment, naalala ko yung sinabi ng brother ko way back. College pa kami nun eh. Sabi niya, not college. College ako, siya naman nasa WWF na. Sabi niya, what I hope to do in my lifetime as an environmentalist is to bring the term climate change to the masses, na maging household term siya. And I think it's happening na, no?
It's true, it is,
I mean,
yeah. Yan na
even taxi drivers, alam nila.
Alam nila.
Dati wala talaga. And parang ang hirap alamin.
It's a
Paano mo
fact.
solve ang isang bagay na hindi alam ng tao? No? Regarding naman nung sa mga biyahe ko sa Mindanao, ang kagandahan nun is bukod sa nagkakaroon sila ng bisita na hindi usual doon. Kasi sabi nila, the mere fact na pupunta daw ako doon is happy sila na improve ba na na hindi sarado yung mundo nila sa outside world. And pag pupunta yung mga grupo na hindi usually nandun, siguro pwede nang tawaging turista. Kasi wala naman turista pumupunta doon eh. So they feel na may chance yung peace. May chance na magkaroon ng interaction sila sa outside world. And magkaroon ng connection. Tapos I remember, nakakatuwa po nung unang beses na nagpa-workshop ako doon sa Sulu, sa Taglibi. Sa Patikul yun eh. Doon talagang hotspot ng hotspot.
Wow.
May lumapit sa akin elder, tapos he told me, kinamayin niya ako, sabi niya, maraming salamat and you know what, the last time anyone gave an art workshop here was the year after World War II.
Wow, imagine that.
Siyempre,
Isolated sila.
Walang
sila nagpapansin sa kanila.
Wala. Kasi nung nagkaroon na ng mga conflicts doon, pati yung mga foreign traders, hindi na rin pumupunta.
Yeah.
So nagkakaroon sila ng hope. Pagka, every time you mention the word peace, nag-resonate yon sa mga children. Nagkakaroon ng hope. So yung palang art, pwedeng gamitin as a weapon for peace. And ang nakakatuwa din dyan, kahit wala na ako din, they continued the program. Meron silang mga mural efforts. Last month may contest sila, mural contest, na they did on their own. Mga youth groups ang nagsagawa, nag-organize.
Alam na nila paano gawin.
Alam na nila paano gawin and alam nila na meron palang mga ganong avenue para i-express yung desire nila magkaroon ng peace.
Well, speaking of hope and peace, Bobbit, you also do this through your foundation, Carewell, which you started as free cancer support group, no, for people. Now, these are other things you're doing right now. You're very busy with Carewell and also Nudie. No, tell us about Nudie.
Yeah,
You're a nudist.
Yes, that's right. I'm a nudist. I'm very fortunate to be part of this group called Nudie. It stands for Network of Underwater Digital Imagers. And it started just as a group that would help enthusiasts in underwater photography and videography improve their skills. But it has, over the years, expanded to taking on projects that have environmental impact. Government usually gets a bad rap when it comes to its lack of efforts in helping the environment. But Nudie has recently engaged in a couple of projects with Senator Lauren Legarda. She's the chair of the Senate Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. So we worked together with her to put together a film that was directed by Brillante Mendoza. And this film is now being widely circulated to, as AG was saying, bring awareness more to the masses. I like what AG said, na he wants climate change to be part of the vocabulary of everyone at the grassroots. And the senator has also put together a package of climate change materials, which the daughter of our caretaker in Anilao distributed in her public school to her teachers and her classmates. So again, little by little, efforts like this, I think, will gain traction and make a difference. But it's all about getting the word out there so people can see that they can do something even in their daily lives and their daily activities to help make an impact in protecting the environment.
Well said. Well, thank you very much for getting the word out here on News Cafe. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for tonight. We can go on and on about this, but thank you very much for sharing your stories
here.
Thank you for
having us.
Thank you very much. And that's News Cafe for tonight. Thank you, AG Saño and Bobbit Suntay, for being my guests tonight and celebrating Environment Month with us here on News Cafe. And we love hearing from you, so please do keep your comments coming via our Twitter and Facebook pages. And if you haven't done it yet, make sure to download the Solar News mobile app to watch News Cafe via live streaming or to catch up on previous episodes. See you next Thursday. I'm Mitzi Borromeo. Thanks for meeting minds with me tonight on News Cafe. Good night.
Saka sa bukod,
funny
onwards.
how, you know, what we study doesn't necessarily bring us to the careers that we choose. Because you took up psychology, that was your undergrad.
Yes,
Ikaw
yes.
naman, AG, art, you were in
Landscape architecture.
landscape architecture. So imagine. So how did, I mean, when you were growing up, were you always exposed to nature? Do you think you had a passion for this even at a young age?
I've been exposed to nature for as long as I can remember. Kasi yung parents ko, they loved bringing us to different places every weekend. Even nung grade school pa, high school. Pag Saturday, Sunday, drop everything. Na, pasyal kami, Los Baños, kung saan-saan, Batangas, Tagaytay, wherever. Tapos, I found myself being passionate about the environment. Later na. Yung, I think, towards the end of my college years na. And one factor there is, syempre yung brother ko, who has been an environmentalist for the longest time.
Since Climate Commissioner Saño.
And then, sa landscape architecture kasi, meron kaming parang Bible, yung design with nature. So by default, magiging environmentalist ka.
Yes.
Because you would really have to design based on nature. Hindi yung ikakat mo lahat ng puno. Like, let's say they give you one piece of land to design. Kakalboy mo, tapos nag-introduce ka ng design mo. That's not how it works. No? They teach us how to work around nature.
Yeah.
That's why it's sad to see yung mga development ngayon na puputulin yung puno. Tapos, or let's say may isang puno na sabi nila tatamaan daw ng drainage, so puputulin na lang. I mean, you spend 5 years in college to study civil engineering. Kasi hindi mo kayang umiwas ng isang puno na 3 meters, 2 meters lang yung
Which took how many
diferensya.
years? That's
Hindi ko
right.
maintindihan.
So ito talagang kailangan natin talagang pag-aralan dito sa Pilipinas,
Yes.
ano? Yeah. For you, Bobbit, you also did your masters in several. What you did, human resource development, international affairs, education in the U.S., Georgetown.
Parang sa bukod, yun ba na sa lahat ng dito? Media educators are warning called to become press freedom.
This corruption in media would be reduced to
Good evening, I'm Mitzi Borromeo. June is Environment Month, so for tonight's News Cafe Mind Brew, we're going green and talking to some guys who have been making huge waves for environmental awareness and conservation. AG Saño is an artist and professional photographer who has gotten worldwide recognition for his dolphin murals scattered around the Philippines, which he has done through his organization, Dolphins Love Freedom. And Robert Suntay, fondly known as Bobbit, is a dive master and underwater videographer whose work has been featured widely here and abroad. He is a member of the WWF Philippines National Advisory Council and the network of underwater digital imagers. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for being here tonight.
Good evening, Mitzi.
So a lot we have to talk about to raise awareness on the environment. Let's start with you, AG. Since 2000, you've been volunteering in marine mammal surveys. No? You started with WWF?
That's right, WWF. We formed the team in late 99, and then the first trip was in the summer of 2000.
So this was the humpback whale
The
survey.
humpback whale survey.
That's how you
right.
started. Then you worked with a Disney company that was
That was
around
about
after
6
that.
years later.
Totally different. Totally
Totally
different.
different.
It's just, you're a photographer. At the,
Yeah, same job but different subject. So ibang wildlife yung kinukuhanan ko sa Disney.
Oh, iba't
mga
ibang
chipmunks, mga dogs.
Now, after that, this is when you saw the Cove.
That's
and
right.
this is what really spurred you for your dolphin advocacy. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was one night in 2007. I was with Disney and we were watching CNN. Tapos while eating dinner, we saw a news clip about two Hollywood actresses, si Hayden Panettiere and si Isabel Lucas.
Yeah.
And the news clip showed that they were trying to stop some Japanese fishermen from killing a whole pod of pilot whales.
Yeah.
It was in Taiji, Japan.
Yeah.
So it opened my eyes, and the very next day, I found myself talking to my manager and asking him to release me na.
Yeah.
Kasi it was a very profound episode.
Very
in
emotional.
Yeah,
I mean,
very.
you
Kasi
see the
I've
blood.
been working on dolphin and whale conservation for 6 years na. Tapos I would see
Seeing the
see
slaughter
that
of these-
parang they could just easily slaughter a whole pod of pilot whales. It was something that really affected me.
Yeah.
Tapos at the same time, naalala ko, my workmate, another photographer, parang she joked, sabi na, aren't you supposed to be doing that thing. Kasi they knew that I've been doing conservation work before
Right.
I worked for Disney.
So it was a natural path
That's
for
right,
you,
that's
no?
right. So I went back after a month. And I went back straight to whale conservation pagbalik sa Pilipinas.
Diyan talaga ang puso mo,
Yes.
ano?
Tapos, after 3 years, that was when I saw the movie. And it so happened that this exact same news clip on CNN 3 years earlier was actually part of that documentary.
Ah.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
So you wanted to use art as a way to really just raise awareness on this
That's
issue.
right.
That's why you did dolphin murals.
Initially, I just wanted to pay tribute to those beings. And as a painter, yun yung naisip ko na expression. So immediately after seeing the movie, that was the morning after I saw the movie, nagpaint kagad ako ng isang wall. Tapos nagpaint ako ng dolphin and then doon na nagsimula.
Oo. From there, dami-dami na around the
Yes.
Philippines. But we'll talk more about that later. Now, Bobbit, you came from the academe, actually.
Yep.
You were a principal, you were a teacher, and then you got into underwater videography. How did that happen?
I guess in a way it was kind of like AG also. It was like a natural progression, the coming together of the great passions in my life. I've been in education for a long time, and then I've been diving now for almost 20 years. So I guess it was almost inevitable that the two would come together. My desire to teach and share about the beauty of the underwater world to people who don't always have the chance to appreciate it firsthand the way we do. And so now we know that environmental awareness and conservation is so much on the forefront. So again, it was just one more important block coming together that I started talking about not only the beauty of our marine environment, but the fragility and importance of it, and how each of us can play a role in really helping protect our fantastic underwater world.
That's
The
right.
final piece was 4 years ago when I fell in love with underwater videography. That helped me just bring the whole project, as it were, together.
Yeah. You didn't even have formal training in videography. This is something, a passion.
Yeah,
you
no,
pursued,
no formal training. It was kind of funny. One weekend I was in Anila with a bunch of friends, and my friend Gabby Besa lent me his point and shoot with an acrylic housing, and he said, "Here, try it." So I went to one of my favorite dive sites and started shooting, and that was it. Love at
Well,
first
exactly,
sight, and
love
I
at
never stopped shooting from that day.
On Harvard. Then you found yourself in education. Do you miss it, or do you feel like that also prepared you for what you're doing now?
The way I look at it is my classroom has changed. My students have changed somewhat, but it's still really education that I'm involved in. When you have the privilege to share with people the experiences that you have, interacting with these rare and delicate and important marine species, both the flora and fauna, and telling them about how important it is to take care of them. To me, that's still education. I may not be surrounded by the four walls of the classroom, but when I go out to the sea, to our beautiful marine landscapes here, I really have no complaints. I think I have one of the best classrooms and offices in the world.
Yeah, well, speaking of classrooms, you began diving many years ago when dynamite and other illegal fishing practices were still very much rampant. Can you tell us about some of these experiences, diving back in the day?
I guess, again, kind of like AG, that's how I inadvertently got into marine conservation. My parents and my titos and titas were really into nature also, so we would go to the beach with all our cousins when I was very young. This was in the mid to late 1960s. We used to go to this far-flung place called Bamboo Beach, which is now known as the famous Kawayan Cove, but we were going there in 68, 69 when hardly anyone could even get there. And then the involvement, I'll never forget. I was just newly certified, so this must have been in '94. I was diving in a beautiful dive spot in Anil.